A 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, hello. Wow.
Welcome, friends of the show. We are back with another episode of the Serious Rock Talk podcast.
Ooh, all right.
A big thanks for your emails, suggestions, and your support on our social media platforms. Continue to email us at seriousrocktalk@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Listen to a new show every week. Just tune in each Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. New York City time on Cap City Beats, located at www.capcitybeats.ca. Okay, buckle up for some serious rock talk. Well. Look at what we got here at the table, ladies and gentlemen. It's one of those days that we're actually going to be reviewing another album, cut by cut, track by track, liner note by liner note.
Wow.
Serious Rock Talk has emerged. Welcome to 2023. I'm one of your hosts. I go by Kennedy because, like Madonna, I like to go by one name. Man to the left of me, we all know that he's a big fan of bluegrass music and likes to jam and party to Conway Twitty.
Damn right. Dr. Ian Clark, thank you very much.
Hello, darling. And a man to the other side of me likes to partay in a different way, and he likes to sing songs from the grasslands, and he's a big fan of, oh my goodness, what is it, Emerson Flame?
Emerson Lake and Flame. Okay.
Stephen Wheeler.
There we are.
Excellent.
So what do we got today on the burner, my friends?
So we chose Dirty Work,
Yeah.
which was the 18th British and the 20th American studio album by the English rock band The Rolling Stones. I have no idea though why the numbers are off.
Yeah, that's weird. Why?
That's all different releases. That's all. Just
Yeah.
staggered releases.
So it was released on the 24th of March 1986.
And the world has never been the same.
And it's 39 minutes and 47 seconds long. I have to mention that.
And it was originally on CBS Records. I'm not sure if they're being reprinted on the same, because they had a new contract with Columbia Records at that point.
That's true.
The one I have here is actually the actual physical vinyl is CBS Gramophone Platinum.
Nice. So it was produced for the story by Steve Lillywhite. It was recorded during a period where relationships between Mick Jagger and Keith Richards had soured so considerably that frankly they hated each other's guts more than ever before, and this is according to Richards' autobiography, Life. The album was recorded during a time of turmoil for the band because basically Richards and Jagger couldn't be in the same room together. They'd been feuding over the band direction during most of the 80s. Almost all of the band had spent the previous years working on solo albums or side projects. Some band members, including guitarist Ronnie Wood, drummer Charlie Watts, and bassist Bill Wyman, were often absent from the studio during recording sessions. It was rare that all 5 principal members were together at the same time. It would be the last album to feature former member and frequent piano contributor Ian Stewart, who died shortly before the album's release. And some people say that was a good thing for him, apparently.
Probably finished them off.
As a result, a number of the guest musicians appeared on the album, including guitarist Jimmy Page, Bobby Womack. Keyboards were played by Evan Neville and Chuck Leavell. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing those names right. Who would remain with the band for decades. Unlike most Stone albums, there was no supporting tour, as the level of animosity was so bad that basically they couldn't be on the same stage together without wanting to kill each other.
Well, if you look at the album artwork, You got Keith is in the middle and he's hogging the couch. You got Bill on one side, kind of like looking sad, and then you got Ron, saying, "What am I doing here?" Charlie's not even paying attention; he's just looking at the ground. And Mick is kind of like in awe. He's probably upset that Keith took the couch, and he put his foot on there. It's a depressing cover.
Well, it's also
And the
done
colors
that
are
dreadful 80s pastel.
Yeah.
That makes it, they're so far from their blues roots. You'd think they're kind of disco guys going out for a swing that night. It's
Or
terrifying.
a Duran Duran cover band.
Yeah, everything is wrong about it.
Well, they're dressed like as if they're on Miami Vice.
True,
Really.
yeah, exactly.
The couch is it looks like an Easter egg color. But yeah, it just, you're right. It smells 80s 100%. Mind you, it was released in the 80s, but now we're 2023 and we're looking at it saying, okay, here we are.
Yeah. Nobody wants to be in this picture.
No, you can tell.
Everyone's looking at their watch. I mean, it's for me, it's kind of a prelude to what you're about to hear. But we'll get into that.
It looks like, Ian, you went in there and you gave him the bad news. Saying, listen, this album is not that hot.
I just found out, guys, everyone's bank account is drawn over. You're all bankrupt. And that's what they look, especially Keith. Keith looks like he needs a meal.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone's depressed.
It looks, look at Charlie.
That being said, it actually sold well. It reached platinum or gold status depending on countries, including the US, Canada, and the UK.
Yeah.
And it peaked at top 10 charting albums in about a dozen market. It spawned 2 top 40 hits. So the Harlem Shuffle, which is a cover of Bob and Earl.
Yeah.
And another one was written by Ronnie Wood. The One Hit to the Body also reached the higher parts of the charts.
Yeah.
However, the album was a critical flop, with most critics then and now finding it uneven, uninspired, and basically the proof that a band should be working well together, otherwise they shouldn't be recording. According to a lot of critics, in the pantheon of ballad albums by great musicians, few are as shockingly, transcendently awful as the Rolling Stones' Dirty Work.
Nicely said.
By all accounts, it's a miracle that the band didn't break up during the time, as tensions with the band was of seismic, thank you, proportions, and the album itself was promptly made with derision.
Right.
So again, according to critics, it's almost inaccurate to call Dirty Works a Rolling Stone album, because no one cared about the band at this point. And Charlie Watts was struggling with addiction at the time and barely drummed on the album. The kinetic synergy that defined early classics like Let It Bleed and Sticky Fingers is completely absent. So according to the critics, it gave a feel of slick and hollow, even by 80s standards, to the album.
Yeah, really.
That being said, it had one of the most impressive roster of guests ever on an album. Which was really sad because it couldn't make up for the lack of quality control and the palpable disconnect between the band. Again, not from me, this is from critics.
And you know what? To argue, you said what it did well in the UK,
US, and Canada.
Okay. Let's put Canada aside because for some odd reason they feel bad for everybody. We do.
Yeah.
It's
true.
you've knocked this numerous times that this country sometimes has no backbone.
No.
The States, I'm surprised. England, no, because
It's the Stones.
It's the Stones, and let's be realistic. And I know you're hard on them, and so you should be because you've known this band longer than Wheels and I put together because you grew up with this band. When you mention the Rolling Stones, it's not hard to say, I want to go listen to it.
Sure.
I want to take a look at it. I'll go buy it. It's the Stones. At the end of the day, it's going to sit in my collection, and I added another one to it. We do that with certain artists. I've done that with Bryan Adams. Not all of his stuff is great, but because I like the guy and I respect him as a musician, I figure I'll go get it. Same with the Stones. There are some albums, Emotional Rescue, not so good. Steel's Wheels, now you put Dirty Work in there too.
That's true.
So it's just, I think name record. These guys have earned they've earned their right. They could put out a crap album and they're gonna.
Don't worry about that. They put more than a few out. Holy Christ, Jesus! But no, I agree with that. And listeners of the show might know recently we do this track by track review of some albums. And for this one, I started out happy as a puppy. And I listened to this, and when I regained consciousness, I said, okay, maybe Wheeler and Kennedy will do something for it, but I cannot review this, I don't think, track by track. This album is so dreadful that no human being can review that and hope to retain his sanity. The moral of the story is that even rock gods like Les Rolling Stones are susceptible to profound, blatant, enduring failure. I just can't do it. You got to remember, this came after, I think, Jagger made a solo album just before this. Everyone was fighting, and you can't get good stuff. And somehow the Beatles pulled that off, even when they were kind of bickering. But this album is just doesn't work at all for me. And I thought, even Harlem Shuffle, yes, I remember it was a hit, but it's a cover. And a lot of guys can do great covers. When the Rolling Stones do it, it becomes a hit because they're the Rolling Stones. They have that momentum to their career because they have such great albums in the past, right? And as we mentioned earlier, even the packaging's terrible. This is the first time they ever included a lyric sheet, which is just bizarre. There's actually something called a comic. There's a comic strip called Dirty Workout. I mean, how 80s can you get? Dirty Workout comic strip that was inserted in the cover. And probably in desperation after they listened to it and thought, oh, God, we have to do something else here. So, 2005, Pitchfork included the album cover in their list of the worst covers of all time. I'm looking at it right now.
You got the comic right there.
Thank you. And it goes so far to quote, goes so far to completely tarnish the reputation of a Valhalla enconced band while demonstrating the crushing awfulness of 1980s aesthetics. Wow, that's some nice writing. In retrospect, the album's reputation seems to be bound to context rather to content. As we said earlier, 1980s was a terrible time for the Rolling Stones. Everybody knew it. Predecessor of this, of Dirty Work, was Undercover, which is also unlistenable. And that's just the way it gets. Jagger said later, you get difficult periods, and that was one of them. Quote, Dirty Works wasn't that good. It was okay. It certainly wasn't a great Rolling Stones album. The feeling inside the band was very bad too. The relationships were terrible. The health was diabolical. I wasn't in particularly bad shape. The rest of the band, they couldn't even walk across the Champs-Élysées, much less go to the road. So we had this long, bad experience of making that record. And the last thing I wanted to do was spend another year with the same people. I just wanted out, unquote. Nothing's good is going to come of that, right? And that's essentially the way I feel about it.
And I agree with you.
Yeah.
You know why? I'll tell you why. The reason why I think this album, or maybe all their stuff in their 80s that they did, with the exception of Tattoo You,
Yeah.
because you've been around for so long, you got sloppy.
Yeah, you got sloppy and tired.
You got sloppy and tired, but you also took advantage of people's good graces that because you are the Rolling Stones and you've been around for so long, that you figure, all right, I'll do a whole decade of crap and people will still forgive me for it. Then I'll come back in the 90s with Voodoo Lounge, redeem myself, put out a few more albums that are not all that great, come back in the 2000s with another one, which is called Glimmer something. They did actually a commercial for Vodafone in Italy for one of their songs, Love It. It'll come to me. But this is you get sloppy. I want to compare right now to the Beatles. They did what, 9 studio albums?
Something like that, yeah.
Probably out of all of them, maybe the one I'm not a big fan of, maybe was Revolver.
All right.
Okay, so Yellow Submarine was
Okay.
a soundtrack.
Really, it was a soundtrack.
Okay,
Yeah.
but we've discussed this numerous times. Like I still think Rubber Soul was solid. Help was solid.
Abbey Road, solid.
Abbey Road is even the Get Back album. You know?
Yeah.
So like the Beatles, if they would have continued, I'm sure they would have gotten sloppy. Because you look at the solo stuff of Lennon,
I know.
and the solo stuff of McCartney, and even the solo stuff of Harrison, it's sloppy.
It's bad. I know. I don't know what happened with the Stones. One huge problem, I know I'm being obvious here, is drugs. I mean, no one knows that Charlie Watts was a heroin addict. Because Keith is like the epicenter or the magnet for all this stuff. Charlie Watts was a heroin addict. Took him years to kick it. And that was going on. We mentioned earlier he had substance issues. Yeah, heroin. So he got all this stuff happening at the same time. And Mick Jagger is kind of this hedonistic lunatic sometimes. And he wasn't paying attention. Loudersound.com rated, out of 28 albums, rated Dirty Work as the 27th worst Stones album. I'm sorry, 28 Stones albums. The 27th worst. I don't know what, I should have written down what topped it.
I'm curious, which was the worst one?
I don't know. You're gonna have to wait till our next episode.
Emotional Rescue, maybe?
Yeah, really. Out of The Guardian, out of 23 Rolling Stones album, The Guardian ranked Dirty Work as the worst. So you're not going to get very far with it. Anyway, so we can try track by track. If you guys are up for it, maybe we'll have to take a few
good. Let's do it.
Go for it.
So the first track is One Hit to the Body, which is a Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Ronnie Wood number.
Yeah.
Which to me, I don't know about you, Kennedy, but I think it is the one great track on this album.
Yes, and it's a great opening track for an album because it gets you hooked in.
Okay.
And I find it's got some solid drum beats.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nothing too complex. Now that you told me that he was battling heroin, and there's a reason why he stuck with quarter note beats on quite a few of the songs.
Plus half the songs he's not drumming.
Yeah, so that explains another reason.
Yeah, really.
So I really like this song. It got me on this song here. I listened to I put the turntable on, and it's good. I like that song.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it has Jimmy Page, who's doing the wild guitar solo. So
Yeah, well, he's a legend, so they got help on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm okay with that song. Ian, your take?
Yeah, I thought that was the strongest song on the album, but given what's on the album, hey, right? The bar wasn't that high to begin with.
Well, it was the second most downloaded song on Spotify when you look at the Stones for that album there in particular.
Sure.
So that one is the second most downloaded song, and obviously you could guess which was the first.
Harlem Shuffle.
Yeah, there you go. So the second track, Wheels, Fight. What do you
Fight
think?
is a Jagger Richard Wood production.
It's weak.
It's really weak. Actually, the lyrics from Jagger on this were horrible. They're off-putting. He's being a little whiny brat kind of thing. Plus, the music is really unimaginative. And there's no way of showing off on this one. It's just bad music, bad lyrics.
No, that's it then, yeah.
What about you, Kennedy?
Fight is terrible. I don't like it. I just thought it was weak, and I skipped it pretty quick.
I'm on you with that.
Yeah.
So next one is the Harlem Shuffle.
All right. I like to use the term great rendition.
Actually, that's nice. Great rendition.
Mixed vocals were on key.
They were on key. It was a funky bass on it. I would go back to the original. It's really good. And I don't know how hard it is to do a cover, but they're not a cover band.
No.
The fact that they did a cover, I'm a little leery, you know what I mean? And it becomes...
Well, they didn't do anything really revolutionary with it.
Nah, they more or less sang it straight. And I'm okay with it, I guess. There was no need for it.
No. Although in this case we have Bobby Womack, who does the nice call and response with Mick.
Yeah, but the great Bobby Womack, right?
True, yeah.
He was Sam Cooke's buddy.
And the video's fun, which... That makes it a really 80s album because they had a video.
I know, and it's very 80s video too.
This album, though, Ian, to get back to the rating, All Music rated it a 3-star. And the one that's worse than that, which you probably were like, yeah, maybe, Love You Live?
It's okay. I'm surprised because Love You Live has a lot of stuff that was recorded at the El Macombo in Toronto.
Oh, sorry, Still Life is the worst.
Oh, Still Life. Yeah, okay.
They gave it a 1.
Really?
So they gave Dirty Work a 3.
And Still Life 1.
And they gave Steel Wheels a 3.
Oh, Steel, okay.
Flashpoint, they gave it a 2.
Oh, this is all over the place.
Voodoo
Okay.
Lounge, they gave it a 3.5.
Okay, this guy's really grumpy. I mean, Voodoo Lounge wasn't horrible.
Emotional Rescue got a 3. Some Girls, by the way, got a 5, and that's a great album, and they just honored that actually December 28th.
I think it's their last great album.
Yeah.
And that was what, 78 or something?
78. Surprisingly enough, Black and Blue got 3.
There's a few good songs, but overall, nah.
And then obviously, like you said, you hit
The
on
classics, Goat's Head Soup, all this are great albums.
Yeah, Exile on Main Street 5, Sticky Fingers 5, Get Your Yayas Out 4.5.
Yeah, it's a good live album.
Yeah, Let It Bleed 5.
Easy.
Beggar's Banquet 5.
Easy.
There's Satanic Majesty's Request 4.
And then that's ambitious.
Flowers 4.5.
No, stop.
Between the Boutons
Yeah, good album.
5.
Yeah.
Aftermath 5.
Yeah.
December's Children and Everybody's 4.5.
Yeah, not really.
Out of Our Heads 4.5.
Nah.
The Rolling Stones Now 5. Rolling Stones number 2 4.5. 12 by 5 5.
Okay, he's being lazy. He's just punching the miss.
And then the first one that they did was Rolling Stones, England's newest hit makers, 4.5.
Oh yeah, okay, he's just being lazy. You know, in my, he's just, because it's early doesn't mean it's great. That means, you know, like the Beatles, you try to listen to early Beatles. I know you don't like it, but a lot of early Beatles stuff isn't even good anyway.
It's okay. It's a two
you wouldn't know it if the same guys didn't sing Hey Jude.
two bubble cop, bubblegum.
Bubblegum, yeah.
So, okay, so we agree that Harlem Shuffle's good.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
next one is Old Back, which is one of the weaker ones. You would have hoped they held back on that one. There's no nuance, no subtlety. The drum sound is completely overdone. The grinding guitar are annoying, and Jagger's vocals are just all over the
He
place.
yells. He is yelling through most of this album.
I find that they're trying to imitate Huey Lewis.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, good.
No, I feel it sounds like a Huey Lewis song,
That's
but
true,
just
yeah.
like
I know.
worse. Like I noticed again the quarter note drum beats. Right, this is all he was doing. It's nothing. Not Charlie Watts. But if you told me yourself, he's not even. He pretty much-
Apparently, he was zoned out for half of it. So he got who credited, to their credit, they credited the drummer. Sometimes they wouldn't even do that, right? So yeah, no, I'm with you.
Next one is the last track from side one, Too Rude, a Lyndon Roberts song.
It's a reggae. I heard
Yeah.
reggae when I listened to that.
Yeah, I heard too.
Yeah.
I thought the reviews I read, the guy really dumped on it. I thought it was okay. But again, if it wasn't the Rolling Stones, you'd say, yeah.
Well, it's also because they have Ronnie Wood on bass and drums, and they had help from Jimmy Cliff on that one.
Oh, wow.
There's your reggae influence right there.
Huge. Jimmy Cliff was amazing. I think he's still alive, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he's great. The harder they come, the harder they fall.
So next one we turn over. So side two, we get up with Winning Ugly, Jagger Richards production again.
I think that's a Huey Lewis copy that has that pub blues feel when you listen to it.
That's
Actually,
good,
the critics
yeah.
back in the day said it was a decent enough Motown bass line.
It's okay. It's not golden, but it's kind of like you walk into a pub and I'm okay with it in the background.
I'd say that's an okay. That's a 5 out of 10. Yeah, you're right. If I walked into a pub and I heard the band was playing, you'd say, okay, I might dance. But I'm not going to buy this.
No.
It's
But-
filler.
Plus, in this one, it shows that they have no freaking clue what to do with synthesizers. Like
good.
it's just there, but
They're not a synth band by
no. And plus, Jagger in this one, he has no idea where he's going with
He's
this.
hysterical. Yeah.
Then we have Back to Zero, a Jagger Richards Chuck Leavell number, to me, which is the worst song on this album.
Yeah, that's bad.
It sounds like a James Brown song to me.
Yeah, there's no direction to it. I couldn't figure out, what do you want to do with this?
Like the lyrics were kind of catchy. What is it? Back to Zero.
Yeah, it's about nuclear war.
Yeah.
But it's synth heavy. The mid tempo jams are not at all Rolling Stony, if we can call them that.
Yeah, right. I know what you're getting at.
And they tried to do something exotic, but I mean they're working class guys from Britain. Exotic does not fit.
I know. Plus, the message is kind of tired.
Yeah, by the mid 1980s. Yeah.
Give it up.
Then we go to Dirty Work, which is a Jagger Richards Wood cut, and
It's a
one of the
track.
better ones.
It's I think it's got an all around good beat. I thought the lyrics were kind of like a rock.
Yeah, it's okay. You know what's shaping up here is anything that Wood contributed to the point where they credited him for songwriting is a little bit better than just the Glimmer Twins. You got Jagger Richards never gave credit to anybody. He had to get a crowbar, and the fact that they brought Wood in, they were desperate. That's, you know what I mean. The fact that I couldn't believe when I saw the credits. This is the only time this happened. Well, pretty well. And
Oh, yeah.
they must have been desperate. They weren't in the same room, you know. So he was obviously the go-between.
Yeah. Well, and it's still too busy. There's just too much going on that doesn't mesh.
It's as if they're trying to cover up for lack of substance.
Exactly. Then second to last song, Had It With You, a Jagger Richards Wood again number.
Sounds like a Chuck Berry song.
Yeah, that's a good
The
point.
guitar riff.
Yeah, which has been done ad nauseum with the Stones. I just thought nothing of it. It was just vapor for me. Interesting, but if I wasn't the Rolling Stones, as I say, I would have just flipped it off.
Yeah, plus there's something wrong with the up tempo in this one for some strange reason. Like it's just, I don't know. It's not. They
There's a
want it to be
problem-
bluesy, but it doesn't sound bluesy.
There's a problem with the drum mix on this album too. It's all over the place. There's no bottom end on it, and as if Bill Wyman is trying to correct for that, which is the bass is kind of interesting on this album. I thought overall, and Wyman he's, I don't know, doesn't get enough credit, I think, for what he did while he was there.
And there's something called spicy harmonica, from what I've read on that in that song.
It's got to be
which
Jagger.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's just bizarre. And the last, but not the least, song on this one is "Sleep Tonight," Jagger Richards number.
That's a power ballad. Sounds like a ballad to me.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that was an '80s thing that they had to do it.
Yeah,
Every heavy metal
yeah,
band and
it's
then one
true.
power ballad, and it turned out, oh, well, look at that, it made top 40.
Yeah.
I know.
This one didn't make top 40.
Oh, here's a critic I can read. Sleep Tonight is a decisively awful final track, which sounds like a drunken lounge act. It's safe to say that even Keith was throwing his hands up and saying, screw it by this point. So there you go.
So this one actually has an inclusion of the piano solo by Ian Stewart. So probably one of his.
Poor guy. What a way to end it.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the Spotify, though, they have this song called "Key to the Highway," and it's about 47 seconds long,
Yeah.
and it's piano, but it sounds like I'm getting ready to watch an episode of Peanuts.
Oh, one of those things. Yeah. Well, Keith, I know. What was it's 33 seconds long. It's like a novelty. I know this guy Lillywhite who produced it. I don't know if they had a gun to his head or what they did, but it just doesn't work. So I hope we're not dispiriting you too much, but hey, when you review these albums track by track, it's not all going to be, glowing reviews and stuff. And Rolling Stones, a great band, great songs, obviously, but they're capable of putting out this kind of garbage, in my opinion.
And this garbage came out because I was on the phone with Ian cleaning out my vinyl collection.
Yeah.
Listing off these. I'm like, I get rid of it. I'll get rid of that one too. And I'm like, how about Dirty Work? Yeah, I get rid of it. And I'm like, well, let me listen to it again.
Light it on fire.
Then I call him up. I'm like, it's not that bad, actually. He's like, well, let's review it then. Okay, great.
I mean, it's true. And the other thing that inspired is so many of shows I've heard that do cut-by-cut reviews are reviewing albums they love. And I thought, oh, that's a little tiresome. I mean, why not try something where maybe not everybody likes it? And yet the band is good. That's the kicker. It was a terrible band, a terrible album. What's the point? That's just being mean. But if it's the Rolling Stones, it'd be like reviewing a really bad Beach Boys album. And believe me, there are a number of them.
I was going to say.
But they're obviously a great band.
Exactly. So we ate a lot of prunes before we recorded this one.
We sure did.
And what we'll do for the next album, we'll go on an album that actually just people love. Because we've hit and miss. For me, I thought Revolver was hit and miss.
Yeah.
And this one here is definitely a miss.
This is right over my head. But yeah, we'll do one maybe with slightly more like Revolver, or maybe some of the earlier, not Stones, but maybe a Beach Boy, and it won't be Pet Sounds because obviously it's a masterpiece. But yeah, we'll do that. So I hope you enjoyed this half hour of us yapping away about the Rolling Stones' Dirty Work from 1986, track by track. And it's up to you whether you want to go out and buy it and waste your money, or maybe just listen to it on Spotify. But not one of their stronger efforts, in my humble opinion.
Well, I completely agree.
I agree 100%. Their 80s work is very weak.
Oh,
But then
man.
again, most musicians' work in the 80s was pretty weak.
They got lazy. They mailed it in.
They mailed it in, yeah.
Well, I'm Ferris Kennedy saying au revoir.
I'm Ian Clark saying, hope I don't take another one hit to the body. See you later.
And Stephen Wheeler saying, huh?
Good night.
Do the Harlem Shuffle, ladies and gentlemen. Just do the Harlem Shuffle.
Right out of the studio. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow.
Does anybody want to rock and roll? That's all about it.
Teenage savages go wild in a juvenile jungle of lust and lawlessness.
Good evening. Good anything. My name is Ian Clark, and you're in for a treat. You really are, because today we're going to be talking about, well, one of the best albums ever made. And that's not just me saying that. That's anybody who knows anything. You know, we don't really need to develop a case for the defense or the prosecution, what have you. This is an established fact. You know, it's scientific almost. Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, 1966, is among the best albums. I'm talking top 4 or 5, whatever, ever made on the planet Earth. We're going to try to find out, discover, uncover what happened, and thankfully why it can't be duplicated, right? Because it is magic. So like anything truly great, it could be from painting to a sculpture, to a mathematical equation, to a medical breakthrough. It's always a combination of factors, right? That's easy to say, I know. Perhaps impossible to prove, as I say, but in the end, that's what it is. There's one more ingredient that's very odd, and I can refer to it as kind of like a cosmic pixie dust that's sprinkled by something, some power, somehow. I don't know what goes on, and it coalesces the whole thing, and you get something like Pet Sounds. Okay, let's begin with a bit of history. Pet Sounds is the 11th, I believe, studio album by the Beach Boys. It was released back in May of 66 on Capitol Records, of course. When it came out, the critics in North America weren't crazy about it. Over in the UK, it attained, I think, they liked it much more. I think at number 2 position. Back in the States, I think it got number 10 on Billboard. You know, as an aside, music critics really rarely get it. They tend to go with the flow. And that's how they make their money. You can't condemn them for it. It's just the way it works. Capitol promoted it as, quote, the most progressive pop album ever. Well, for once, the promo guys were right. It was, and in a way, still is. It was ridiculously sophisticated for a pop album. It just, you know, usually it's 4 guys on guitars. It was absurd. Now, let's keep it in mind when this happened, 66, so he really began in 65. What was around at that point in terms of, I won't call it competition, but what else could you expect if you were alive in 1966 and had the radio on? And that'll also help put it into perspective, because this is the stuff Brian Wilson was influenced by. So in 66, Dylan released Blonde on Blonde on the same day as Pet Sounds. Good Lord, they should make that some kind of that music day in the U.S., right? Everyone gets it off, and they can run around the streets singing either stuff from Blonde on Blonde or Pet Sounds. Who else? The Rolling Stones put out stuff, as they always did in the 60s. Mamas and Papas, big year for them. Simon & Garfunkel, Rascals, Donovan Beach. What else was out then? Songs like Winchester Cathedral, catchy song. Bus Stop by the Hollies. Day Tripper by the Beatles. These Boots Are Made for Walking by Frank. No, I know it's Nancy Sinatra. I'm a Believer, written by who? Neil Diamond and sung by the Monkees. Lightning Strikes by Lou Christie. Great voice, Lou Christie. The Pied Piper, sung by Crispian St. Peters. The Pied Piper, I know that. The Pied Piper, trivia on that was co-written by a fella. What is his name? He's the co-producer, co-creator of the Woodstock Rock Festival. Artie, anyway. Working my way back to You, The Four Seasons, Cherry Cherry by Neil Diamond. Summer in the City, Love and Spoonful. Yeah. You see, the point here, this is a singles setup. The record companies wanted you to buy singles. That's the point. The markup is better than an album. That's why in the B-side of a single, you often got kind of crummy stuff. The idea was you had to buy another, 45 to get the second good song on the album. So they're not totally insane. They got to make a buck, eh? They got shareholders. So, very shortly before Brian Wilson began formally recording Pet Sounds, the Beatles released Rubber Soul, another amazing album. And that album, Rubber Soul, arguably, I love that term, arguably, but it's true, arguably is one of the first concept albums, and I know it's not a concept album, but in a way, it's what they call album-centric rock. I like that. It's not just covers or fillers, like a lot of the early Beatles stuff, right? Rubber Soul, you got the feeling there was a cohesion to it, all right? Now then Pet Sounds, Brian Wilson heard that, of course, and started off on Pet Sounds. It was his inspiration. Remember Pet Sounds, no Sgt. Pepper, right? According to Paul McCartney and George Martin. When he started Pet Sounds, he would use a lot of studio musicians, and he had to get the best in the Beach Boys. You can't blame them. They're not the best, instrumentalists, great singers, but yeah. So this is a quote from a guy named Jerry Cole. Jerry Cole was a guitar player, a session guy back in the 60s. Quote, "The first time I walked into a Brian Wilson session, I thought he was just another dumb kid. I had played 12-string on the Byrds' Mr. Tambourine Man, and I thought this was just another kid project. But we'd walk out of Brian's sessions shaking our heads saying, this son of a bitch is either crazy or he's an absolute genius. And the latter came to pass. He knew exactly where he was going, all the piano parts, guitar parts, bass, drums, vocals. He knew exactly how they were going to fit in this kind of Brian Wilson jigsaw puzzle. And they did." Okay, some more context. What had the Beach Boys been doing just prior to Pet Sounds? Well, they had, Summer Days, Summer Nights was released in June 65, and that was 3 months after the Beach Boys Today. Boy, they were busy. And there was some great songs on those albums, right? Help Me Rhonda, I guess everybody knows. Let 'Em Run Wild, that's a great song. A little something called California Girls. Carl Wilson, here's a quote from Carl. He said, quote, "It was around summer days that it became evident to me that Brian was evolving very rapidly on many different levels. If one song offered a big clue that he was taking pop music to a new level, it was Let 'Em Run Wild. I remember first hearing the track in the verse, there are so many different parts, themes, and lines." Yeah, that's from the late, great Carl Wilson. So you can see what Brian was up to. The level of sophistication was almost absurd. We weren't really playing with Louie Louie anymore. By the way, keep in mind, Brian Wilson was 24 years old when he wrote and produced one of the greatest pop records in history. I'm not sure what I was into 25, but it sure wasn't that. The other aspect we should mention of this strange mix, and it's hard to mention it because I don't want people to think that it's in any way supremely influential, is the role of drugs in the making of Pet Sounds. Those who know the Brian Wilson story know that he has had psychological issues, you can say. The poor guy's been burdened for 60 years with problems. A lot of it was brought on by just overusing LSD in the mid-60s and tons of their dope. And Brian just got burnt out, and it took him 25 years to recover. But it's a story that ends well. He did recover. However, that said, Brian was on a fair amount of LSD during the making of Pet Sounds. And he said that it opened his mental state. So, again, this is not, obviously I'm not going to advocate anything like this, but it was there. I mean, Keith Richards has gone on about the use of, well, as if Keith has to go on about the use of drugs. But he was a heroin addict during some of their best albums. So, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Probably in spite of the drugs they did it. So, in April '65, Wilson took LSD and he said that he saw the face of God. This is a very common statement, belief by many who've taken LSD. I mean, get in line, Brian, on that one. But the problem was, about a week after, he began suffering auditory hallucinations. What a terrifying thing. And in a way, he's taken the medication to combat it, but he never really was the same. At this time, he met up with a guy named Tony Asher, who was a 26-year-old copywriter at a ad agency, who wrote jingles. Not many jingles anymore, but there used to be a whole bunch of them. And he made his living doing that. And he said he agreed to work with Brian. He couldn't believe he got the call. Here's a quote from Tony. "We didn't write anything the first day. Brian just played some stuff for me. I've got a couple of tunes," he said, "but I don't know if I want to put them on the album or not. One of them was My Childhood, which became You Still Believe in Me. I wrote the words at home apart from Brian. He was very pleased with what I came back with. Looking back, it never occurred to me that Brian would listen to what I had written and say, you know, this is great. Thanks a lot. Let me call you if I want you to do some more. Normally, I was a bit apprehensive whenever I presented a new commercial to my boss or whatever, but that wasn't an issue with this album. I can't explain why. Brian was happy, and he said, what kind of schedule do you want to work on? So we figured it would take a couple of weeks to write the album. So I went to my employer and said, I got to have a 2 or 3 week sabbatical. And my boss said, go for it. You know, I don't know who Tony Asher's boss was at that time, but he should get some points on Pet Sounds. What a great guy. Yeah, go for it. Just get out there and do it. Why not? I mean, we have the songwriter and we have the lyricist in place. What else? What happens next? Brian's described Pet Sounds as, quote, an interpretation of Phil Spector's Wall of Sound production. So now we're on to production. Brian produced this album, by the way, and he produced it and mixed it in mono because, well, for one reason, he's deaf in one ear. He said, quote, if you take the Pet Sounds album as a collection of art pieces, each designed to stand alone, yet which belong together, you'll see what I was aiming at. It wasn't really a song concept album or a lyrically a concept album. It was a production concept album. Isn't that great? A production concept album. You'd never, ever get that kind of thing today. Anyway, it is when you listen to it. He said he wanted to make a complete statement, similar to what he believed the Beatles had done with Rubber Soul. So many albums up, as I mentioned to that time, we didn't really have a cohesive artistic goal. And he wanted to change that. He told his wife, her name is Marilyn, quote, Marilyn, I'm going to make the greatest album, the greatest rock album ever made. That's great. A guy can say that, and it happens. Like, it's just, it's ridiculous. Rubber Soul, what did George Martin say? George Martin said about Rubber Soul was the first album to present a growing Beatles. I like that, growing Beatles to the world. Yeah, Rubber Soul had a lot of emotional range, as they say. Wilson really liked I'm Looking Through You and Michelle. But best of all, he liked the Lennon song Norwegian Wood. This bird has flown. That's an excellent song. And that influenced him writing Pet Sounds. He loved Paul McCartney and John Lennon's writing. I mean, these guys, it was a friendly rivalry. At least I hope it was friendly. You know what? I'm not going to list off the songs and Pet Sounds. That's going to review them. That's not what this is about. I'm going to run out of time anyway. You can find that stuff online. What I'm trying to get at, and what I said from the top, is how the hell did all this happen? You know, what was going on in his mind? Okay, let's go back to the source. Brian Wilson. This is a quote. It all starts with religion. I believe in God, in one God, some higher being who is better than we are, but I'm not formally religious. I simply believe in the power of the Spirit and in the manifestation of this in the goodness of people. I seek out the best elements in people. People are part of my music. A lot of the songs are the results of emotional experiences, sadness and pain or joy, exultation, and so on, like California Girls. It's a hymn to youth. I find it possible to spill melodies, beautiful melodies, in moments of great despair. This is one of the world's wonderful things about this art form. It can draw out so much emotion, and it can channel it into notes of music and cadence. Good emotional music is never embarrassing. Music is genuine and healthy, and the stimulation I get from molding it and from adding dynamics is like nothing on earth. Wow, talk about natural therapy. Now you know why Brian finally got on board again. He's thinking that way. Good for him. I'm just talking about the power of positive thinking. Gee. So again, that's probably it's probably the most important quote of this podcast that you're going to hear. Let's talk a little about the instruments. Remember, this is 1966, where you usually had what? Maybe two guitars, electric bass, drums, like a Beatles setup. What did he use? Well, let's see. He had a glockenspiel, ukulele, accordion, an electro-theremin, bongos, harpsichord, a viola, a violin, a cello, trombone, Coca-Cola bottles. I know that. Probably at the beginning of Caroline, no, right? And bicycle bells. He had about the average of 12 instruments per song. So, again, it's just, this just didn't happen in pop music. He did some, I think, about 2 instrumentals, right, on that. And I mean, one of them he offered to, or wanted to offer, I'm not sure, to the James Bond producers. And it does sound kind of Bondish. So you'll find 2 tracks on Pet Sounds that he didn't think suited lyrics. The arranger, a guy named Paul Mertens, who collaborated with Wilson on some live performances of the album much later on, right, believed that although there are string sections on Pet Sounds, quote, what's special about that is not that Brian was trying to introduce classical music into rock and roll, rather he was trying to get classical musicians to play like rock musicians. He's using these things to make music in the way that he understood, rather than trying to appropriate the orchestra. Wilson tended to write vertically in block chords rather than horizontal manner of classical composition. Wow. Okay, here's the overall feeling, the overall vibe you get from Pet Sounds. Here's a quote from the great composer Jimmy Webb, Mr. MacArthur Park. He said Pet Sounds represented a special moment in history. Brian Wilson came together with the technology, the record business was blooming, and the youth culture in America was taking off. Today, people are always wistfully trying to hope another lost Beach Boys album into existence. They're hoping that someone will find a tape, and that it will be this mythical album that Brian made, but it's not necessary because the album is there. Pet Sounds is the album, and it could only have happened exactly the way that it did. It's a confluence of powerful influences and a manifestation of our culture in sound. That's the great Jimmy Webb. So we can see, folks, all these pieces in motion. So we have the answer of our self-imposed question. Part of the answer anyway. Why is Pet Sounds one of the best albums ever made? The vectors crossed just for a few months in the history of the planet and would never cross again, like that. And again, they were sprinkled with some kind of cosmic pixie dust. Money didn't make it. Promotion didn't make it. The critics didn't make it. And in a way, the Beach Boys really didn't make it. In the end, it was put together in the mind of a troubled 25-year-old Southern California young man, likely a genius. Folks, Pet Sounds is the saddest, upbeat album you will ever hear. And that's part of its mystery and part of its attraction. There's a seductive quality to it. It's optimistic, romantic, cautious, nostalgic. For those of you unfamiliar with Pet Sounds, I hope that I at least sparked enough interest for you to take a listen, and for those who recognize the album for what it is, hang in there because you are part of the Cosmic Gang.